네, 안녕하세요. NGS게이머즈입니다. 지난 시간에 이어 셜록홈즈 유언 두 번째 화를 시작하겠습니다. 자, 나이츠브릿지 교구로 이동을 해보겠습니다. 바로 이벤트가 뜨네요.
The police? Already? How did you know?
May we see the Bishop of Knightsbridge?
Yes. Yes, of course. But come in.
What has happened, Reverend?
What? I don't know. It was last night, I think. I only just arrived, and I have made this macabre discovery. My God. How horrible. I haven't called anyone. How did you know that?
Holmes! Look! The Bishop, appallingly mutilated. How dreadful.
Mutilated. And killed. He was such a good man. How could anyone be so brutal? Look at him. He is barely recognizable now. How could any of God's children be responsible for that?
They were evidently unworthy children, Reverend. Now do please try to calm yourself and focus, because we will need your assistance. Do you have any idea as to the motive behind this?
I haven't had time to do an inventory, but nothing appears to have been stolen. And anyway, His Excellency didn't own anything of great value. I don't know what else I can tell you.
Note this down, please, Doctor.
Doctor? But you aren't the police?
No, Reverend. I am Sherlock Holmes, and this is Dr. Watson. We are here at the request of the Bishop.
In that case, I must ask you to leave, and not to touch anything. I must get in touch with the authorities without further delay.
Reverend, when the inspectors of Scotland Yard find themselves at a dead end, which they quite often do, I assure you, then they turn to me for help. If you will allow us to continue our investigation, then you shall have the answers to all of your questions.
Out of the question! I don't even know you! I'm going to call the police, whether you like it or not.
It would be better for everyone, Reverend, if you kept your temper. Watson, are you taking notes? This affair promises to be a complex one. Therefore, we must not overlook the slightest detail.
Yes, Holmes. I am keeping a meticulous set of notes. I have created a very clever deduction board. One thing we can be sure of at the moment is that this crime was not for gain. The Reverend has informed us that nothing valuable was stolen. And indeed, it would seem that the Bishop had nothing of any worth to take.
Very good, Watson. Do continue.
자, 추리보드가 처음으로 열렸는데요. 재화, 주교는 값진 물건을 소유하지 않았다. 금고 안에도 없었다. 일단 좀 더 진행을 해서 단서를 모아보도록 하겠습니다. 일단 먼저 사체를 보도록 하죠. 굉장히 잔인하게 살해가 되어 있는데요. 일단 얼굴부터 보도록 하겠습니다. 이런 식으로 줌되는 부위별로 좀 줌이 돼서 좀 더 상세하게 조사를 할 수 있는 시스템이네요.
You can see by his expression that he suffered terribly.
His mouth is covered in blood, and I can make out strips of skin between his teeth.
His chest has been lacerated, I would say, with a very sharp and fine blade.
자, 이제 배 부분을 좀 보도록 하죠.
His stomach is covered in scratches. Quite evidently, they weren't made recently.
So, these wounds were not made by his murderers. The fingers have been crushed and violently struck. The fingers have been crushed and violently struck. His forearms have been ripped. Pieces of skin have been torn off. What do you think, Watson?
I'd say that he was eaten alive. Yet I've noticed a curious degeneration of the skin tissue around the wounds.
My dear friend, everything points to this man having gnawed at his own forearms.
That's unbelievable, Holmes.
A piece of rope that was used to tie up that poor man.
자, 이번엔 발을 보도록 하겠습니다.
These burns are terrible.
This poor man was tied just below the knees.
To stop him from walking, certainly, but mostly to free his feet.
His feet have been burned.
My first impression is that he wears a size 9 shoe.
You! But what does it matter, Holmes? My God, Holmes, this man was horribly tortured.
A finger. Apparently it doesn't belong to the Bishop of Knightsbridge.
How dreadful.
네, 사실 단서 하나가 더 추가가 됐고요. 피해자는 잔인하게 고문당했다. 네. 그리고 주교는 자신을 물어뜯었다. 팔에 있는 상처를 보고 추리를 해냈네요. 자, 더 찾을 건 없고 나가보도록 하겠습니다.
Something is missing here.
Oh yes? And what might that be?
His shoes. Watson, his shoes are missing.
네.
This stove is filled to overflowing.
다른 단서들도 좀 더 찾아보도록 하죠.
A broken phial and blood near the neck.
What a strange smell. Chemical components, I think.
There is blood on this paperweight. This paperweight was used to crush the victim's fingers.
A broken bottle of whiskey. However, the Bishop of Knightsbridge was known for his sobriety.
A bottle of whiskey. I can make out fingerprints stained with blood and dirt.
It would seem that the brutes who tortured the bishop to death were intoxicated with alcohol.
자, 이쪽 단서는 다 찾은 듯 하고요. 이번에는 이쪽을 보도록 하겠습니다.
The picture of Peregrine Maitland, commander of the infantry brigade of Her Majesty's Guards at Waterloo.
The Bishop of Knightsbridge has the same name as his ancestor, an illustrious family. A whip?
No, it is a discipline for self-flagellation. It's a cilice designed to bruise the person wearing it. The bishop wore it as repentance. This very pious man must have had the habit of mortifying his flesh as a means of repentance. This metal rod is for fastening the chilice.
단서가 좀 더 추가됐으니 출입판을 다시 한번 보도록 할게요. 플라스크가 추가가 됐고요. 깨진 플라스크 상단에 피가 조금 남아있다. 이런 식으로 물음표로 표시되는 것들은 선택지입니다. 일단 살인범들은 주교에게 플라스크에 담긴 내용물을 마시게 했다를 선택을 하겠습니다. 다시 위로 가보면 뉘우침이라는 게 추가가 됐네요. 주교는 스스로를 채찍질하였다. 그래서 고행에는 익숙했다. 피하지라는 잔인하게 고문당했다와 주교는 스스로를 채찍질하였다. 고행에는 익숙했다를 조합하면 고행에는 익숙했고 고문을 당했지만 견뎌냈을 것 같습니다. 자, 이번에 다시 위로 하면 결핍이라는 게 추가가 됐고요. 주교의 신발이 사라졌다. 네, 더 이상 추가된 건 없죠? 다시 밖으로 나가보도록 하겠습니다. 단서는 다 찾았고, 자, 이번에는 판을 한번 보도록 하죠.
I need something.
뭔가 도구가 더 필요한 것 같고요.
Impossible to open it.
도구가 없이는 열 수는 없는 것 같네요.
Reverend, I'm missing something. An implement with which to open this chest. Could you tell me where to find it?
No, go to the devil.
What are you afraid of, Reverend? What is inside the chest?
I'm not afraid of anything. In fact, I do have the necessary implements, but if I have to give them to anyone, it will be to a representative of the law and no one else.
일단 뭐 정보 제공을 거부하고 있고요. 단서를 계속 찾아보도록 하겠습니다.
This door has not been forced. Where does it lead, Reverend?
To His Excellency's room. There is just a mattress and a stool.
주교의 침실이고요.
It is impossible to get out.
창문과
The bishop's
침대.
bedroom. It is very austere. Nothing in particular here.
뭐 크게 눈에 띄는 건 없네요. 자.
Closed. The veranda door hasn't been forced. Strange. Reverend, might I have the key?
No! You have no authority here. Let me call the police.
Perhaps we should listen to him, Holmes.
Perhaps you should let me get on with this, Watson.
단서가 또 추가가 됐나 보네요. 보관함이라는 단서가 추가가 됐고요. 살인범들은 금고를 열지 못했다. 주교는 고문을 견뎌냈고 금고를 열지 못했으니 뭔가 가져가는 게 없겠죠? 주교의 살인범들은 원하는 것을 얻지 못했다를 선택합니다. 아, 이런 식으로 그 추리가 맞으면 녹색으로 표시가 됩니다. 베란다가 추가가 됐고요. 베란다는 수색하지 않았다. 거기에 주교는 값진 물건을 소유하지 않았다. 금고 안에도 없었다. 살인범들은 특정한 무언가를 찾고 있었다를 선택합니다. 네, 더 이상 추가된 건 없습니다. 다시 나갑니다. 그리고 이번에는
Surgical scalp covered in blood. There isn't any doubt. The wounds on the bishop were administered with this scalp.
자, 외과용 메스를 또 얻었고 바닥에 단서가 또
Watch
있네요.
where you're putting your feet, Watson. Have you noticed these prints upon the ground?
Well, yes, those muddy marks.
See here, Watson. Footprints can often provide more vital information than the very best of informants.
Yes, if you know how to make them talk, that is.
It's child's play, Watson. We will begin by excluding the contaminating prints, which are yours and mine from where we came in, and those of our dear Reverend who was so impatient to call the police.
자, 이제 조사를 해보도록 하겠습니다. 돌 조각이 하나 있고요.
Fragment of stone. Peculiar. Hobnail boots like those worn by laborers.
노동자의 부츠. 뭐 나머지 것들 비슷하고 이거만 좀 다르네요.
This print came from an expensive pair of shoes, and it seems recent. It is not a laborer's shoe.
자, 이번엔 사이즈를 재보도록 하겠습니다.
Size 9. Size 9.5.
9짜리와 9.5짜리
Size 9.5.
그리고 9짜리
Size 9. Size 9.
9짜리
Size 9.
마찬가지로 9네요. 자, 이제 질문을 선택해 보겠습니다. 일단 뭐 다른 돌 조각이 묻어있던 신발 하나와 일반 9.5짜리 신발 신발 그리고 9짜리 신발로 있는 걸로 뭐 3명이 있었을 것 같습니다.
Perfect. We now know that there were 3 crooks.
두 번째 질문. 발자국에서 알 수 있는 사실은 무엇입니까? 일단 주교의 신발이 없어진 걸로 봐서는 다른 신발을 신은 채로 방을 나섰다가 맞을 것 같습니다.
That's not right. Start
어이구.
again. Strange but true. One of the crooks was wearing a different pair of shoes when he left here. Therefore, we have 3 men who came in and left again, but one of them was wearing a different pair of shoes from the ones which he came in with.
So, all we have to do is look for a workman who likes Italian shoes.
단서가 다시 업데이트가 됐으니 확인을 해보도록 하죠. 자, 맨 위부터 신발이 추가가 됐고요. 살인범 중 한 명은 다른 신발을 신고 떠났다. 와, 주교의 신발이 사라졌다. 살인범 중 한 명은 주교의 신발을 신고 떠났다를 선택합니다. 그리고 신발 장사를 한다. 가난하다. 가난해서겠죠? 결핍이니. 그리고 가난하고 살인범들은 특정한 무언가를 찾고 있었다를 조합하면 살인범들은 누군가에게 고용되었다가 맞겠죠. 가난했기 때문에.
Perfect. It is evident that the Bishop of Na이츠브릿지's killers were after something specific, and that they did not find it. Reverend, I shall ask you one more time. Open the chest. The item they were seeking must still be inside. It is unlikely that they will let this matter rest. They will most certainly return to finish what they started.
And I'm telling you once more, the chest is locked and shall remain so.
Very well. We have reached an impasse. You are a stubborn man, Reverend. Watson, accompany our friend to the police station and return with Inspector Baines. Baines and no one else. I shall wait for you here. Go. Alone at last. Now I can continue my investigation.
자, 목사와 왓슨을 보내버렸으니 이제 베란다로 들어가 보도록 하겠습니다.
This lock should be easy to pick. Let's see.
쇠막대기를 이용해 보도록 하죠.
This lock should be easy to pick. Let's see.
자, 보시는 것처럼 저 위에 있는 저 열쇠 구멍 모양으로 이 쇠막대기를 꺾어주면 됩니다. 이런 식으로. 자,
That's not right. Start again.
그리고
That's not right. Start again.
네, 요 모양대로.
There we are. It is simplicity itself. There isn't anything much in this room. It must be used as a reading or meditation room. An ink stain, quite fresh. This stain is just on the edge of the rug. Let's see. There is nothing on the floor, yet the ink must have soaked through the rug. An ink stain. This inkwell was tipped over recently. The ink stain on the floor comes from the ink on the rug, but they are not in the same place. Someone has moved the rug recently.
러그에 있는 잉크 자국과 잉크가 쏟아진 지점의 잉크 자국이 위치가 좀 다른 걸 보니 러그를 누군가 한번 드러낸 것 같아요.
Apparently someone wanted to hide this statue. This inkwell tipped over the ink stain on the This horse resembles a large chess piece. There is a message underneath this statue. Let's see.
조각상 밑에 메시지가 있습니다. 상상력이 부족하구나. 그만큼의 열정을 체스에 쏟아부어 보거라. 나이트가 다른 지점 칸들을 모조리 지나친 다음 마지막 지점에 도착하는 게 정답일 테니 말이다. 사랑한단다.
This message was written by a woman, but for whom was it intended? Interesting, this chess game.
자, 러그를 한번 치워보겠습니다.
That is curious. There is something strange on the floor. Certain stones have been marked out, just like a chessboard. That is curious. There is something strange on the floor. Certain stones have been marked out, just like a chessboard. I need something.
자, 방금 찾은 체스 말을 활용을 해보도록 하죠. 아까 편지에 나왔던 것처럼 이 체스 말을 이용해서 요 칸들을 모두 채워주면 되는 그런 퍼즐입니다. 자, 크게 어렵지는 않아요. 몇 번 해보면 뭐 패턴이 정해져 있는 건 아닌데 손쉽게 할 수 있습니다. 이쪽으로 옮기고 제가 한 것처럼 굳이 안 하셔도 되고 다른 루트도 좀 있어요. 할 때마다 저는 좀 달라지는 것 같은데. 자, 이제 여기 가방에서 주머니 칼을 꺼내 여기를 까보도록 하죠. 4월 24일 내 사랑, 아름다운 봄이 왔어요. 오늘은 정말이지 굉장한 날이죠. 우리 막내 아이의 생일이니까요. 아이가 자라는 모습을 보는 하루하루가 소중한 순간이랍니다. 그리고 얼마 있지 않으면 아이가 말을 할 것 같아요. 아이가 처음 내뱉는 말은 아마 당신을 위한 말이겠죠. 정말이지 당신을 그리워하고 있답니다. 저도 그렇고 말이에요. 일요일 저녁 기도 후 휴가를 받는다는 게 정말인가요? 제 생각에는 9월 14일 당신 제가 고집 부린다고 생각하는 거 알아요. 하지만 우리 관계는 꼭 정당화시켜야 해요. 이대로 평생 죄인처럼 살 수는 없잖아요. 3월 3일 당신의 처지가 쉬운 게 아니라는 건 잘 알고 있어요. 하지만 저희 처지는 생각해 본 적 있으신가요? 저랑 이 아이들의 처지 말이에요. 아이들의 미래를 타협할 생각은 전혀 없어요. 당신 생각해 보라고요. 소위 스캔들이라고 불리는 사건을 지닌 채로 우리 가족이 행복하게 살 수 있을 것 같나요? 합법적인 부부관계가 되어야 한다고요. 합법적인 가족이 되어야. 네. 이번 글은 짧네요.
A packet of letters addressed to the Reverend. They were written by a woman who mentions his illegitimate children. Their affair isn't official. Perfect. I have you now, my wayward Reverend.
자, 베란다를 나가겠습니다.
Ah, Watson, you were gone a terribly long time, and Inspector Baines isn't with you.
I'm afraid not, Holmes. We were unable to find him.
Dr. Watson would not allow me to contact any inspector other than this Baines. What manners! I am a man of the church.
My dear Reverend, I notice that you are a chess lover. I trust you will excuse me, but I am never able to resist the appeal of a half-finished game.
You are an expert at chess. Very well then. What do you want now?
As you might have guessed, resolving your small chess problem has allowed me to discover some very interesting letters.
Letters? What do they say?
Reverend, why hide these letters here and run the risk of the bishop finding them?
Holmes, what's in the letters?
Not now, Watson.
Where else could I have hidden them? My own chambers are too austere. They could offer no cover. I knew, however, that His Excellency, may he rest in peace, would not notice my game.
The contents of the Bishop of Knightsbridge's chest interest me greatly. Give me the elements you hold, Reverend.
Out of the question.
I am a gentleman, and it would distress me to be obliged to pass this correspondence across to your superiors.
Holmes, I know that the end justifies the means, but allow me to express some reservations about how you are proceeding.
You say you're a gentleman, but I hear nothing but the words of a blackmailer. The stems that you are looking for are scattered about this room. Managed by yourself.
자, 이제 저 보관함을 열 수 있는 스틱들을 찾아보도록 하겠습니다. 일단 여기 3개. 여기서 하나 더. 책상에서 2개. 여기 하나 더 구합니다.
You have one.
Evidently, as I always do. What are you able to tell us about the Bishop of Na이츠브릿지's last days? Did anyone come to visit him? Did he seem worried, anxious? Do not omit the smallest detail.
His nephew came to see him yesterday at His Excellency's request. I found this visit a little peculiar because the young man rarely visits his uncle.
Do you know why that might be? Were they on bad terms?
I don't think so. It's rather a consequence of his work. The young man is employed within the archive section of the Royal Library. It doesn't leave him with a lot of free time.
Do you know the reason for his summons?
No, but the conversation was very heated. It only lasted for a few minutes and ended with the nephew in a terrible rage.
Interesting.
I've answered your questions. Will you now let me contact the authorities?
I'm afraid not, Reverend. Not just yet. All right, now we can open the safe.
자, 이제 금고를 열어보도록 하겠습니다. 이번에도 퍼즐인데요. 이 퍼즐에서는 요 못같이 생긴 것들을 요 판에 수직 대각선으로 겹치지 않도록 배열을 해주면 됩니다. 하나를 먼저 넣어 볼게요. 이 빈칸이 없는 곳에 하나 더. 마찬가지로 이 빈칸, 요 대각선, 요 대각선이 없는 곳에 하나 더. 자, 여기가 없는 곳에 하나 더. 여기가 될 거고, 여기는 걸리고, 걸리고, 걸리고. 잠깐만요. 뭔가를 잘못 놨나? 여기도 있고, 걸리고, 겹치고, 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 겹치고. 잠깐만요. 잘못 놨네. 여기다 놓고, 네, 이렇게 배열하면 됩니다. 열어보도록 하겠습니다.
Here we are. I am eager to discover what remarkable treasure could justify such an act of barbarity.
Extraordinary.
This chest is impenetrable. How is it possible? No one other than the bishop should be able to open it.
You open the chest with disconcerting ease, Holmes.
I've seen and heard quite enough. This time you won't stop me.
Catch him, Watson.
What the?
But why?
Run, Watson. Hurry.
He's escaped. I hope that your motivations are founded, Holmes. I don't much like skirting around the edges of the law like this.
It is annoying. Let's leave without delay.
What have you found in the chest, Holmes? What in there is so precious for these men to commit such terrible acts?
The Reverend was telling the truth. Nothing important was locked inside the chest, apart from a few religious items which are hardly worth stealing.
So, we haven't made any headway. Perhaps the police will.
By the time the police arrive, we shall be a long way from here, Watson. We are leaving.
자, 일단 이곳에서는 모든 단서를 다 찾은 듯 합니다. 자, 이제 지도를 열어서 이동을 해야 되는데 2화는 일단 여기까지 플레이를 하고 마무리 짓도록 하겠습니다. 자, 저장을 하고, 자, 그러면 다음 시간에 다시 찾아뵙도록 하고요. 좋아요와 구독 눌러주시면 정말 큰 도움이 됩니다. 그럼 다음 시간에 다시 만나도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.